All right. I am recording this on my other computer.
Awesome.
So hopefully that works. Oh, yeah. I did see something pop up about a turn. What's that? Set up. Tries to establish a peer-to-peer connection. No, that's it. Let's see.
Gonna try logging in using a different host as well.
That's more like it.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. It was the internet.
What's that?
The camera.
There was two of me.
Ooh.
At least from my end, I was seeing double vision. So.
All right.
Yeah, that looks better now.
Oh. What in my audio?
Your audio is still there. We can still hear you. Camera's gone now, though. Camera's back.
Yeah, my browser decided to pause me. It's not very nice.
Okay.
Are you guys getting a hum?
Just because I do hear that hum.
I do not.
James, could you mute your mic? Because I'm just wondering if it's. Yep. The hum's coming from your mic. Okay. So we'll just you can unmute, but once we start, you definitely have to mute your microphone.
I will. I wonder if it's picking up my my computer, just the fan noise.
Oh.
It sounds electronic, like I don't know, electronic. I don't know how else to put it.
Okay.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to set up that turn server.
Do you know why it would be something that we would need versus? I was able to get on just fine.
It's because it can't establish a peer-to-peer connection from. So I have this server out in DigitalOcean.
Okay.
With nothing around it. So Mike Lavelle must be behind some kind of a firewall that's blocking the peer-to-peer connection, and so that's why it won't let him join.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. I guess I'll introduce a few things and then turn it over to you, Mike.
Okay.
So for, first of all, welcome. First virtual meeting of the Provo Linux Users Group. We've tried to get this going a few times, but just haven't had things work out as well. So thanks for joining back in and being a part of this and staying up to speed on all the different news groups and whatnot, so that we can stay in contact and get things set up. So let's see, by way of announcements, I am James Simister, president of the Provo Linux Users Group, and just excited to be back and meeting again. Hopefully, we're tentatively setting up for next month that we can meet in person. I'll have to coordinate that with the Business Resource Center at UVU, make sure that they're open as well. And I'll keep you updated on that. As far as our next presentation, we've got that lined up for, I believe it's on alien technologies that Alfie is going to give us a rundown of. Sounds kind of interesting. So that is coming up next month, and that is, I forget the specific date, but of course the third Tuesday of July. And that is pretty much the way of announcements. Let's go around the room and just have people introduce themselves if they can. And let's see, introduce, what brought you here tonight and something unique about you. So I'll start off. Again, my name is James Simister. I have been programming in Linux, or programming for I think over 3 decades now, and in Linux for well over 2 decades. And it's always been a lot of fun to be a part of this group. And I remember even when I joined, it's been so many years. There are definitely some people here that predate me, though. So welcome, and it sounds like I've got a hum on my end, so I will be muting myself when I'm not talking. And but feel free to, let's just go around the room, and let's start with, actually, I think Jason said that he does not have audio or camera, a mic or a camera, so we'll have to. But
looks like a lot of people don't have access.
Is it? Okay.
I'm curious to see if anybody else does besides the 3 of us.
I see Jess. I see Alfie. Yeah, there's a few of us, but I'm not sure if everyone has even audio. So if you can, feel free to chime in. Let's start with Jess.
Sorry, I muted my microphone for a little bit. I'm Jess. Did we have a question that we usually ask?
Oh, just an intro to you, who you are and something unique about you. What brought you here tonight?
Something unique about me. I'm not quite sure. I just started picking up on certain other hobbies. Like I picked up a Wacom and an electric bass, so I'm trying to keep myself entertained. And well, I haven't been to these in a while. Yep.
Awesome. Sounds good. Let's see. 50 Cent?
That's pronounced 50 Cent.
50 Cent. Sorry. There you go.
It's actually a motorcycle. It's just play on the rap name and a motorcycle. But so my name's Jimmy Tigert. I'm in Texas. Michael and I have been friends for some time, and when he used to live in Tennessee, we lived in the same area. And I've been a Linux user for some time. I don't know, maybe 15-ish years. And now I'm in cybersecurity with a focus on Linux, and also a contributor to the Snapcraft group. This not Snapcrafter, but I make a lot of snaps. So if you go on to snapcraft.io and look for KZ650 Cent, you will see, I don't know, 30 or so snaps that I've created for the community, so people can use whatever app they want on Linux is the idea. So
awesome.
anyways, yep.
That's awesome. You know, I think you have the record for the most distance virtually traveled.
Oh, good.
Awesome. I'll have Michael introduce himself when he gets ready to talk. Is there anyone else that has audio that could give us a brief intro to themselves and something unique about them and what brought them here tonight?
I could go ahead and try.
Awesome.
So I'm not. My name is Alfie Matson, and I came here tonight because I like to come to plug in general, and I found that even if a particular topic doesn't seem to interest me at the time, that it sometimes proves to be useful later. So I just like coming to the meetings regardless. And I guess something unique about me when I was in when I was in high school, I submitted an application for lieutenant governor, but since they didn't have a position for lieutenant governor of the math department, it was around the time of or it was the season of class election class president elections, and I was told that they didn't have the position, so I decided that departments weren't democracies and declared myself emperor of the math department.
Awesome. Emperor of the math department. I like that. All right. Anyone else have audio that can intro themselves? Eric, Preston, got a couple other guests that look like they're trying to connect. All right. Well, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat if you haven't been able to through audio. And I'm going to see if I can get this crossed over to Zoom and see if some of the other people can join us on Zoom as well as kind of a backup. I'll keep this up, and then hopefully I can share my screen to Zoom and see if that works. We'll give it a shot anyway. And then I'll put the link in the chat window here. Other than that, I will turn it over to Michael Hawley to give us our presentation on Nextcloud tonight.
All right. Just having a Zoom session, screen sharing, Nextcloud. I feel like Ghostbusters, where you're crossing the beams, and I'm just worried that we're gonna get the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man all over the place. All right. Well, let's see here. Let me try this. And like I said, this is an experiment. I just wanted to see if we could do it. And obviously we're running into issues, but hopefully we can get it through. So I'm going to start my screen share, which is going to grab this view. And yeah, there we go. All right. Great. That's up. So the presentation, what I wanted to talk about is how cool Nextcloud is and how you could use it to de-Google your life. So first off, who am I? My name is Michael. I am a DevOps engineer, but I am a sysadmin at heart. I like working with the systems more than the programming, but I do what I can. Why I feel like I'm qualified to talk about this is I've been using Google since almost the days when you had to get a beta invite back in early 2000s, and I've been actively not using Google for the past 6-7 years. And about the same time, I've been using Nextcloud, which I feel is probably related to what. So first off, what is Nextcloud? If those who don't know, it's a PHP web platform. I wouldn't call it necessarily an app because it does a whole lot more, but the important part, self-hosted. You can do file syncing. You can do calendars, contacts. You can have it built-in Office suite, collaborative. You can do text, audio, video, as we're kind of demonstrating today in this presentation. You can get task or project management tools, an email client, photo gallery. There's just so much you can do. brief history of what Nextcloud is. It was started by a man by the name of Frank. I'm not going to pronounce his name. He's German, and there's no way I'm going to get that right. He created this program called OwnCloud in 2010, him and some others. And it was a really cool self-hosted open source-ish platform. And he trying to get the company up, got a lot of company funding. Those companies got board positions within the company. They started dictating the direction. OwnCloud ended up with an enterprise edition and a community edition. The enterprise edition had some more bells and whistles in it. The community edition didn't. After about 6 years, Frank and a few others kind of got fed up with how the company was running. And so they decided to leave the company and fork OwnCloud, and they created Nextcloud. So they didn't like having an open source tool split like that, and the corporate control, and they didn't feel like the community had much say. So they decided to make it more transparent. For Nextcloud, they rolled the enterprise-ish features into the core version, and to today, there's just one version. You have Nextcloud. They still have corporate sponsorships. They still have a pretty strong focus in the enterprise, but they're for hobbyists like us, the same thing as a Fortune 500, 100 company would use. So let's talk about Google. What do you use for Google? What kind of apps do you use? Do you use Google Search, Docs? Do you collaborate on Docs? Do you use the Meetups, Hangouts, Duos, photo galleries? Do you use Google Drive to move files around? Do you use Google Gmail for contacts, calendars, notes? These are all services that I imagine most people who use Google have. Now, Nextcloud doesn't do search. You have to use at least like DuckDuckGo if you want to use search. But everything else Nextcloud can do. Now, I have a little asterisk on the email. Nextcloud has a webmail client. It does not do email server. So you still have to have an email server like an IMAP or a POP server somewhere. And then Nextcloud can connect to it and give you a webmail interface. Now, I'm not going to say these features that Nextcloud provides. Some of them are not as polished and robust as Google offerings, but they do a good job. And some of them are better. Some of them are about the same, just a little bit different. But if you don't have dramatic, like very specific needs, they can work just fine for you. Now, I may not have mentioned, but Nextcloud also supports encryption while in transit using TLS certificates. Let's Encrypt is one they recommend because it's free. This thing else. It supports encrypt the data on the server itself. It's extensible. You can add more apps to it, give it more functionality as you need to. You can self-host it, which is a great benefit for privacy lovers. It supports, this is really cool, it supports federation. So your server can talk to somebody else's server as if they're on the same server. So I've done this in the past where I've created a file and I shared it with my friend via his username on his server. And he was able to access the file on his server. And so that's what the awesome of federation, decentralization. It's free and open, and it is super easy to install, barely an inconvenience. So first off, let me show you around Nextcloud. Not that one. This one. Okay. So here we are. This is your kind of basic, well, it's not, I've installed a couple of apps. This is where you default to. When you log into Nextcloud, it brings you to the file sync view. This is the main view of Nextcloud, the main app. Everything else is kind of, I think it started out as a file syncing platform and it just grew from there. As you can see, we have files. You can open PDFs and read them right inside the browser here. Taking a long time to load that one. So there's the user manual. You can read that. You can open text documents. You can listen to audio, can see pictures. As you see, I can go through here. And this app also, this basic text document, it supports Markdown. So if you know that, you can use Markdown, which I really like. And then here's a photos gallery. So it's going to show all the photos across your server. This is, it's not as fancy Google Photos right now, but it's still, you can still do something with it, and you can create your own albums and store everything here. We're using the Talk app right now to do this conference. Here's the email client. I don't have it set up, so it won't actually show you anything except to set it up. You got contacts, and the one thing I really like about Nextcloud is it has this concept of sharing. So I'm just going to, yeah, I need to create an address book. There we go. Now I can create a contact. So we're just going to call this guy Joe. And they have this concept of sharing. And so I can share contacts with people on my server. And I'm not seeing it right now. No. Is it in the different view? But, oh, there it is. You can share the address book. And so they have, wherever you see this icon, you can share it with either individuals on the server, or you can share it with a group of people on the server. And that goes for almost everything, even in files. Load. Okay. You can see here all these sharing here. If I click on this on my or I can create a link outside of my server. So that is a really cool benefit, and you can do that, like I said, all across the board in the Photos app. You can do that in Contacts. You can do that in the Calendars app. So you can create in a work setting. You could create contact accounts for a team and then share it with everybody. For me, I use this in my house, so I share it with my family. And then my wife and I have a calendar, my kids and all, they can be in a different calendar. And so we can share that information quite easily. So here I mentioned project management. They give you a Kanban board app. So you can create, your tasks in the various swim lanes. And if you like project management that way, you can do that. They also have tasks if you want to do it just it's a normal to-do list. That one thing that I like that they have this task is it's internally nested. So I can keep adding subtasks underneath tasks all the way down, because it drives me batty when people are like, no, you can't do subtasks or only one deep. So, and I know some people use Google Forms. You can do that too. All these tools are just a click away. And so what I'm going to do to show it here is you can come here. Like I was talking about users. I'll just point this out real quick. This is where I can assign the permissions. I can assign quota, and give them different rights. And so it's really easy to say, I've done it before on my home one. Is I have a parents group, and I have a kids group, and I have a families group. And so everybody's in the family group, kids are in the kid one, me and my wife are in the parents one. And then I can control who can see what. And I can even control who can see what app. If I say, you know what, I only want this app accessible to me and my wife, it's only visible to the parents group. And not all apps support that, but most do. And what I have installed. But have all these categories you can just go through pick if you want. If you want encryption, antivirus, so it'll scan if you dump it into the server. They have authentication, so if you want to use OpenOTP, OpenID, LDAP, OAuth, they have password managers. So you can really two-factor with the YubiKey, for example. So you can really, like I said, it's extensible. They have a lot of apps that just give you more functionality, and it's actually really cool. One of my favorite things, I don't know where it actually, it's probably here in this category, is group folders. So I can create a folder and create a group folder, and then say these groups can have access to it, and then those people have access to the file, and it shares it between users. It's really it's a very nice feature. They even have, if this was deployed in a company level, then you could even have, you can have support to contact people even outside of a team or a group that you're assigned. It's anybody on the server. You could create your own little groups and your own little people to chat with. So that's just kind of a brief tour. Does anybody have any questions off the top of your head about what this is? I'll try to, I'm gonna have to, yes. So if your mic works, you can ask. If not, I can, I'm afraid to click on the tab where I'm actually,
So we
we're actually
have
chatting,
some
because then we're
static.
going to get an inception moment.
I'm
But
not sure.
any questions?
So can you hear me at all?
I can.
Okay. I'm not sure. I'm guessing actually it might be Michael's end that has some static on it. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, it must be. It may be. Hey, Michael, if you can hear, can you quit sharing your screen? Maybe that would help with the bandwidth.
Okay.
Also, Michael, I think from your admin panel, you can mute the rest of us.
Okay.
Because there is definitely some static coming from somewhere.
I have no idea how to do that. Yeah, this is definitely not the same quality as Zoom or these tools. I just wanted to see if it could do what we wanted to do. So I'm going to turn my screen share back on. Get that back. So I'm going to, now the next part is, so I've kind of showed you, I've talked to why it's a good tool to use, especially for family life, and showed it off. So let's talk about how to install a Nextcloud server. First, you need a server. You need something to host this. Now, because Nextcloud is just a LAMP stack, it just needs a LAMP stack, just needs Linux, Apache, or Nginx, MySQL, PHP. You can put it in a lot of different places. So you know what? I have an old PC in my closet. It boots Linux. I can install Nextcloud on it. If you have an actual server, back mantle, yep, you can do it there too. You may have noticed that when I was clicking around, it really responds. Worked for the demonstration.
We lost you there for a minute, Michael.
It moved really fast. I can even install this on a Raspberry. Performance, it will work. You can do just fine. For example, this server is running in DigitalOcean. I stood up the server, typed a couple of commands, got it up and running, and I'm good to go. You can even install it in a shared web host. So it doesn't have to be a dedicated server. You could, if you have something like Bluehost or HostMonster or Gator or HostGator or whatever they're called, you could install it inside of there. Some of them may not have all the PHP requirements, but Nextcloud tries to help by even giving you all the PHP modules if you can just reference them. So you can do there, or you could even just install it in a container on your own computer. So you just start up the container, go to web browser, do all the stuff you want, close it down. If you just want the tool and have access to it yourself, you could do that as well. So once you choose a server you want to put it on, or a computer, how to install? There's pretty much just kind of, I have multiple listed here, but there really just comes down to two different methods. You can either install it using a container system like Docker or a Snap, or you can install it onto Metal. Now, you can install it on Metal or into a VM, but it's inside of the VM, you're just installing a tarball. And for my install, I'm actually using Podman. That is a Red Hat project to replace Docker. So it actually lets you run Docker images, but you don't need the Docker daemon running. So it's actually really cool in that respect. But like I said, you could just install, if you got Apache and you install MySQL or MariaDB or Postgres and PHP, you can just untar the tarball, and there you go. And you can also use a Snap, which is really easy. That's actually, if you were to install a new Ubuntu server right now, it would ask you, do you want to install Nextcloud as part of the install setup? And it will just create a Nextcloud Snap for you. And so that is also a very, very quick and easy way to get it up. And snaps are auto-updating. It's a really cool way to get your server up. And finally, once you have it installed, you need to make it accessible to the users. If it's just you can access it just using a local IP address. But usually you want access to it off of your network. So you would have to point a domain name to or usually a subdomain. Like for my example today, I use cloud. But you could even make it the root of your domain or even a subfolder, but you have to do different customizations if you want mydomain.com/Nextcloud. But you could do that too. It's a web app. It lets you do that. They encourage you to enable SSL, TLS on it. So Let's Encrypt is a great choice. If you want to use somebody, an actual registrar, you could do that as well. In their documentation, they actually recommend that you use a reverse proxy in front of Nextcloud to terminate the TLS connection, but you don't have to. In my case, I actually am. I have Nginx is a reverse proxy in front of the container. And if you don't want to make it publicly available, you don't want to put holes through your firewall, you could also just let it run internally, give it an internal domain, and then use something like WireGuard to VPN into the network. You can soup it up, like I said, with Redis or high availability LDAP logging. This is, like I said, all the enterprise tools flow down into the community level, so you can use them if you have the gumption to do so. And that is Nextcloud. I have right here. Oh, that needs to go away. So right here, I can show you real quick how to install Nextcloud. And that is, there we go. Gotta remember my password. And that's it. That's the right password. There we go. So that's all I need to do. And now I have Nextcloud installed once it's done downloading. And then you just access it with, just doing your local IP address. I also have, that's one quick and easy way to get it. If you have an Ubuntu server that has Snap installed, actually see if that cancels. I also have, this is, you can install, this is how to install Podman. If on Ubuntu, if you're on a CentOS, it's just in the repos. But you could go through here, grab the PPA, install Podman, and then for installing Podman, that's the command to create Nextcloud. And that's the command to create the database. And so you create the database, you create Nextcloud containers, you link them together. It took me about to do the Podman method. It probably took me about 15 minutes to get it all set up and running, and then I could access it via the web browser. I imagine the Snap one I have never tried before, but it probably would take a little bit less time because I don't have to worry about databases and such that because it's all contained. If you're not going to do file syncing, you don't even have to worry about a database. You could just use SQLite and it will work just fine. So I'm going to stop the screen share now. And that is just a quick overview of Nextcloud and how to, there we go. No, stop screen sharing. There we go. So that is Nextcloud, and any other questions? I can show actually installing it if somebody wants, but I just figured this, and I can also provide those Podman files.
Was there any configuration that you needed to do in order to, once you installed it, what was the continued setup process?
So once it's installed, the installer, the web installer, asks a few of those questions and kind of gets things set up. Really, the only configuration you have to do is if you're trying to change up, if you're trying to increase the performance, or if you're trying to, like this turn server to help get through firewalls and using reverse proxies, you do have to go into its config file, which when you're setting it up, you can, if you're using Docker or Podman or something like that, you can basically say, hey, I want the config folder to be accessible on the root file system on the host. And you can just go and make the edits that way, or you could just get into the container. But yeah, they have a config file that's really well documented on their website. and it tells you what you need to change to, like I said, put a reverse proxy in front of it so it behaves appropriately, or to enable those extra features. But by default, a fresh install with no configurations, you can install all of these apps that I had, and they work just fine. They really try to make it so only advanced features need the actual config file. Everything else should be able to be done through the UI.
Awesome. Is this something that you are going to be using for your family or for, people that you know, or are you going to continue to host this, or what's your experience?
This server, I wasn't planning to continue to host this. I put this up really just for tonight. But yes, I have a server that I run on my own machine. That I sync all of my settings, like all my dot files and my personal files, so they're updated on all my computers. You can even add different volumes in Nextcloud, so it has access to it, but it doesn't. The server has access to it. My home computer doesn't need to. And you can do Dropbox, you can do S3, you can do FTP, you could even do Samba shares. And so I've done that before, where I will add a Samba share into Nextcloud to my file server as a way to access files on the go that normally I don't have access to, because Samba is not accessible over the internet. So I've done that, used that as a front end to my Samba share as well in the past. So you can, there's a lot of plugins. I mean, I was even tempted to set this up for my church ward, because they have a map feature that lets you draw boundaries. And so I'm like, here, I'll just put in our area and here's the boundaries and label it so everybody knows who everybody is. So you could do a lot of really cool things like that, because it's just, people just need to write the app and you're good to go.
That's cool. Sounds like a lot of cool features. Are there anyone else have any questions?
This is Jimmy. I really don't have a question, but I just wanted to add that, and I put it in the chat too. Don't get the impression that this is only available on Ubuntu. It'll run on any distribution that can run Snapd, including RHEL now supports Snapd, which wasn't the case last year, but now is good to go.
Well, and it's also any Linux server that can run Apache, MySQL. Yeah. So
I should have said the Snap can run on any. I apologize.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And Docker can run it. I mean, yeah, I'm sure somebody, for kicks and giggles, probably install this on Windows as well, because they can. But there you go. It's a really cool tool, and they've added a lot of. They add new features regularly. Like, I'd probably say their major release cycle is every 2 to 3 months. And they add significant changes. Like this release, which we're running on right now, which just came out last week, added the online, the built-in Office suite, which I didn't even show that off. But they do the built-in Office suite. They also do the this chat app has been significantly upgraded, so it's a little bit nicer. But it is a quite, and the nice thing is it's not hard. So if somebody's like, what, I would like to have this, like I said, 15-20 minutes, throw it up. Oh, and as Jimmy mentioned, they also have Android and iOS apps that allow you to have access to the chat feature and the files and all natively. And if you want, and the Office tools as well. So it gives you a native app to access your data. If you want to sync your calendars and contacts with other devices, as long as you have access to WebDAV or CalDAV or CardDAV, you can access all of these services on other devices as well. So that's how on my iPhone, I synced with CardDAV and CalDAV, and now I can use the native applications to see my contacts and calendars and tasks. But it's all being shared on my my Nextcloud server, and so I don't have to do that. So it's really cool.
What is the compatibility of the Office tools? Are they compatible with like any of the Google Cloud stuff, or with OpenOffice, or?
Sure. So it is actually OpenOffice, so or LibreOffice. They took the engine of LibreOffice and wrote a web interface for it, and so the back end is LibreOffice. It looks like LibreOffice, and I can let's see here. Let me see. Oh no, stamp page. That was wrong. Press. Let me see here. I was having issues with it earlier today, but let's see if it pulls up. If it does, I'll show you. But yeah, so it is, and that's why I said it's kind of nicer than Google Docs, because it actually is, it actually is LibreOffice just in a web browser. So right now, I can't pull it up because I was running into issues because I was behind the proxy and I didn't fully configure it because I was just trying to get it up fast. So
I'll see if I can find a link so anybody who's interested can follow it and take a look at what it is.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So it is like I said, you can replace Google with this. It has all the features, and they also have, as I'm looking, Jimmy pointed out in chat, you can also use only Office. So they have LibreOffice, which they call Collabra, and then they have only Office, both as engines that you can stick into Nextcloud. And there's even there's a password manager. They have a password manager for Nextcloud, but it's not very good. But there is a password manager called NPass that will let you actually sync all your passwords. So the actual password database lives in Nextcloud, and then that's how it syncs between all of your clients. So there's a few tools. A note-taking tool called Joplin also does that, where they sync all the data. They use Nextcloud as the data source to enable the syncing to all the clients. It's pretty cool. Any other questions? Even in chat?
Michael, do you know any other companies or organizations, municipalities that are using Nextcloud?
I'm sure if I went onto Nextcloud's website, they would have a list, but I personally don't know any off the top of my head. Are you gonna ask something, James?
Yeah, I was just curious, what are some of the security implications behind this? I mean, obviously they're trying to replace Google, which has questionable, sharing all your data with everyone, or introspecting all of your data. What kind of security measures are in place for Nextcloud to make sure that it doesn't get hacked, or it's certainly opening up a lot of potential access to, you mentioned Samba shares, documents that you're sharing among whoever's online. What is kind of the, do you know of any security ramifications or issues with anything that they've done?
I know a little bit. So one thing that's kind of cool and I didn't show this, when you go into the settings, it actually has like a little audit. So it goes through and does some checks for you and says, hey, if you go and enable this, it'll add this more security. Or if you go set this up, we recommend you do these things. So it kind of gives you some advice on how to to use it in a more secure way. And the first thing it tells you is like, enable SSL. So you can definitely do that. And like I said, it supports encryption by it encrypts the data itself. So that way, if somebody was to get to compromise the box, not the app, the data is encrypted. The data is encrypted in transit. It is a PHP web app, so I'm sure there's vulnerabilities just like any PHP web app out there. And so, like I said, they update this frequently, and so you have to stay on top of it. But they've also added in, and I kind of mentioned it when I was just kind of scrolling through the apps, they have added in some features to help prevent people syncing encrypted malware. So you know how a lot of people will have the sync on their computer with their company data. They get hit with an cryptoware encrypts their computer. Well, their computer would then sync that encrypted files up to the server and get rid of the original files. And so they've built in some protections to prevent that, to try and to limit that kind of problems. And it also has versioning. So you could, if something were to flow up that you didn't want, you can go onto the Nextcloud interface and you can roll back a version. And so that's one way of not losing your data. So they're like I said, the company Nextcloud is focused on the enterprise. So they're really trying to make this a viable tool in an enterprise space. But us as hobbyists get all that benefit because they will deploy it, get it working, and then those changes will roll back down the hill for us, and then we get to have access to that in all those new features. And so that is, I don't know of any other security precautions they are putting in place.
This is Jimmy again. So Michael and I have been using Nextcloud for some time, full disclosure. And so there are a number of things that they do for the end user specifically. He mentioned the internal audit that it performs on itself and your system that you're running on, so whatever server you've got. But it also informs the end user whether or not certain settings have been applied. I've mentioned in chat that it also informs the end user whether or not the server is set up for data at rest compliance. So are the disks encrypted? Well, if they're not, it'll inform the end user. It'll say, hey, this server doesn't have encrypted disks. But it also allows the end user to then, let's say that is the case, which is most of the time, the end user could then just do file level encryption. So they can click, right hand click, or I think it's right click. Anyways, one of the clicks, they click on it and they have their data is encrypted, or that file is encrypted, or that folder is encrypted. So it's pretty sweet. They have their entire model is based on the end user and protecting the end user's data, and the idea is that it's your data, you own it, and so you're accepting some level of responsibility, but they try to make the application or the solution as secure as they can. And I'll try and see if I can find more information about how the security model works and share it as a link in the chat.
That's cool. Yeah, it sounds like they've got a lot of really good features there. And I checked; it is available on Gen 2 as well.
Yep. And it's like I said, really easy to set up. And if people are trying to set it up and would like help, then hit me up. I can definitely. I've done this a lot. I actually, when I started playing with Nextcloud, I wrote the Docker config files that created the Docker images. not what they used, but I wrote them for myself, and I know all the steps to do it, to get it running pretty easy now, and so. And
there's a question in the chat.
Like I said, it's just really accessible, and you can even, if they even have services. So if you want, you could pay Nextcloud, and they will stand up a Nextcloud instance for you and maintain it for you. So that way, that's probably will give you the best security. But they'll do that as well if you don't have the means to do it. I ran across the company, because this is just a web app. I ran across a company down in Brazil, I believe, who they create a folder in just called website, and using Nginx rules, they just say whatever static website you throw in that folder, it will be served up according to like a personal website URL. So you could go to mysite.com/my username, and then there's my website. So it's a way to even create like a, I guess, in a kind of like a classroom setting, every user can have their own website, and it's accessible. And they've done that, all of that, just because they can do that. And I've seen even people trying to port over wikis, so you can just have your own wiki built right in. So it's pretty cool. I say that a lot. I apologize. I just like it. Any other questions by anybody?
I think Jimmy already addressed it, but Alfie was asking about a chat system similar to Slack or Discord.
That basically what we're using for this is the closest they have. So everybody joined into a chat room and then joined this video call. But you can create your own chat rooms with anybody you want, either outside of your Nextcloud server or just within your Nextcloud server. And so it's a text chat. You can do voice, you can do video. So it's not as good as Discord and Slack and Zoom, and it's not as good, but it is all open source, and it works for the basic needs. So it's actually pretty cool. And the web and the iOS and Android clients also support that chat. So you can use those apps instead of the web to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the presentation, Michael. That was awesome. If there are any other questions, speak now or stick them in the chat. But I think this is a really interesting presentation. It's something that I definitely want to look into and see if I can get this up and running. Sounds like it should be really easy. But I run, a site for my family, and I think this would be something that would be really useful and beneficial for my family to use to help share some things. And
absolutely.
Maybe even I'll have to look at the webmail client as well, because right now I'm using Roundcube, and I actually like that a lot. How this one compares to Roundcube.
I really like Roundcube as well, and there are some apps that you can actually install in Nextcloud that is a wrapper around Roundcube, or more of like it references it, so it kind of like leaves your Nextcloud header bar at the top, but then everything underneath it is just an iframe, and it's running Roundcube. So I've seen some people do that, but it is, in my opinion, it's not as good as Roundcube. I really like Roundcube as well, but it's not the worst email client I've ever seen. So there's that.
Cool. What kind of hardware would you recommend for running this? Processor, memory, disk size, that kind of thing?
That's a really good question. So for this chat, this meeting, I set up a really beefy box at DigitalOcean because I was just afraid. It's been idling this entire time. It's only used 500 megs. And I think that the highest I saw the CPU was like 6%, and it's on a 4-core. So really, this does not need a lot. If you're doing a lot of file stuff, it might need a little bit more, but you could probably, like I said, really an old PC, even if it's like a Core 2 Duo. I don't know if I'd go as low as Pentium 4, but I have a Core 2 Duo. I wouldn't have a problem throwing it on it. Now, don't expect it to be the fastest thing in the world, but as long as that's not an expectation, it'll work just fine. That's what I said. I'm like, throw it on a Raspberry Pi. It totally will handle it. Especially like if you got a Pi 4 with at least 2 gigs of RAM, no problems. Or the Orange Pi that we set up a couple months ago. That one she could do it too.
Awesome.
But I will recommend don't do it with 500 gigs. You need more than 500 gigs. Because MySQL, when it runs out of memory, it is not happy. I've learned that from personal experience. So at least go with 1 gig or more or higher. That's why I said maybe 2. But I'm just looking at the server right now, and it's using 558 megs. So it really is sipping on the resources. And this whole video chat, it's offloading all of the work to the clients. So your personal computer is probably like my personal computer is it was like at 70%, 70% CPU doing this. So the server itself, yeah, it can handle it.
That's interesting. I was just checking my CPU right now. I'm up at 65, 70, 75%.
Yeah. So that's a cool thing. And all this whole conversation is all encrypted. And if there was any remnant of it left anywhere, it's on the client side or it's on your own server. So it's a great way to have a secure chat with people that nobody has extra keys into. There's no back doors. Somebody can't come in and eavesdrop on you because it's all your infrastructure. It's all encrypted.
Cool. Thank you very much for the presentation, Michael. This is really informative, really cool.
Yep.
And I think it's a really fantastic platform to look into. So I might take you up on trying it on the Raspberry Pi. That'll be interesting. I'm just kind of curious how fast it would actually go.
Yep. And like I say, if you don't do file syncing, you don't even have to set up a database. You could just use SQLite. If you want to do file syncing, you will need to set up a database.
Got it.
But yeah, besides that.
How about setting up the Samba shares? Does that require a database as well, or?
Nope. It will use SQLite. So
sure,
that is a database. It's just not a fast database.
Right.
But you can even use SQLite for file syncing. It's just going to be slow. But yeah, you can. The Samba share is just a setting, and then you can connect in and access all those files.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much. If there's no other questions, I guess we can call it a night. So once again, I'll mention we've got the upcoming meeting for next month is actually, Alfie, do you want to give us a little preview or a little gist of what you'll be covering next month? If he's still on. Not sure if he's still there.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Anyway, so the title is Alien Technology, speaking about some of the different things that we've got and, maybe some of the interesting, more theoretical sources of some of that technology. So this was a talk that he gave at Open West, and I happened to catch it. It was actually pretty interesting. So he's offered it to our community as well. So that's coming up next month at the plug meeting for July. Stuff we brought back through the Stargate. Yes, definitely. All right. And with that, I guess we'll close for tonight. I wish I could offer you guys pizza, but unfortunately, virtual pizza is all we have with this. And some bits. And it's like most things with open source, it's bring your own and do it yourself. So you can select your own slice of pizza from your own refrigerator. Alrighty, we will talk to you next week. Be up or check the meetup for updates on whether we're going to be meeting live or online. We're hoping for a live class next month, but obviously based on people's level of comfort with that, as well as availability of the space that we meet in and all that. So I'll try to get that coordinated as soon as I can and figure out if that's going to be a possibility or if we'll need to meet online again. For those of you on Zoom, thank you for joining on Zoom as well. I'm glad that seemed to at least work for a little while. It looks like I'm still sharing, so we'll see how that goes. So I think that was actually kind of a success too, to be able to share this through Zoom as well.
Yeah. I'd say next time if we do it virtually, we'll just stick with Zoom.
I think so. Or I don't know, maybe I'll set up my own server and do it through Nextcloud on it. We'll see. I think I would agree, though. Zoom is probably a better bet for this, just because I hate to say stability, but the experience that they have and the longevity that they have in the